I'm going to give you 5 warning signs that your bank has an insider threat problem right now. Not theoretical risks, not hypothetical scenarios. 5 concrete, observable signs that exist in your environment today. And here's the deal. If even 2 of these sound familiar, you need to act before your next audit. Because regulators are no longer just asking about external threats. They're asking specifically about insider risk. And if you can't answer those questions, you have a bigger problem than you think. Let's go through them. I'm Sahil Kataria, 14 years building products for banking and fintech. I'm building FluxForce to deliver continuous insider risk monitoring for financial institutions. Here's my first question for you, and I want you to answer this honestly, just in your own head. How many people at your bank right now can access the core banking system with admin level rights? Do you know the exact number? Not a rough estimate, not somewhere between 20 and 50. The exact number, who they are, what they have access to, when that access was last reviewed. If you can't answer that within the next 60 seconds, that's sign number 1. And here's why this happens. It's not because anyone is negligent. It's because of something called privilege creep. An employee joins the bank. They get access to the systems they need for their role. Makes sense. 6 months later, they move to a new department. They get new access. But nobody revokes the old access. Why would they? Nobody filed a ticket. Nobody flagged it. The old access just stays. 2 years later, that same employee has access to systems they haven't touched in 18 months. Systems they have no business reason to access. But the credentials are live. The permissions are active. Now multiply that by every employee who's ever changed roles, changed departments, or taken on a temporary project with elevated access that never got rolled back. The Ponemon Institute's research on insider threats consistently shows that privilege creep is one of the top contributing factors to insider incidents in financial services. Most banks have 2 to 3 times more privileged accounts than they actually need, and they don't even know it. That's not a security posture, that's an open door. Sign number 2. And this one is deceptive because it feels like you're covered. You know who logged in, you can pull up a report right now showing every user who accessed the system today. Great, that's table stakes. That's the bare minimum. But here's the question that matters. Do you know what they did after they logged in? Did they access 10 customer records or 10,000? Did they export data they've never exported before? Did they access a system at 2 a.m. that they normally only touch during business hours? Did they download a report that has nothing to do with their current caseload? Login monitoring tells you someone walked through the front door. Behavioral monitoring tells you what they did once they were inside the building. And the gap between those two things, that gap is exactly where insider threats operate. Because an insider doesn't need to break in, they already have the keys. The only way to detect them is by noticing when their behavior deviates from their normal pattern. If your security stack stops at authentication logs and doesn't extend to behavioral analytics, you're watching the entrance and ignoring every room inside. Sign number 3. And I want you to go ask your security team about this one after watching this video. How many DLP alerts, data loss prevention alerts, are you generating per day? And how many of them are actually being investigated? Because here's the reality at most mid-market banks. Your DLP system is generating 300, 500, sometimes over 1,000 alerts per day. And your security team, which is probably 3 to 5 people, is investigating maybe 10 to 20 of them. That means 95 to 98% of your DLP alerts are being triaged away, marked as low priority, skipped, ignored. And I don't blame the team. They're doing the best they can with impossible volume. But the net result is the same. This is alert fatigue. And Gartner's research on security operations has documented this extensively. When alert volume exceeds investigation capacity, teams develop systematic blind spots. They start creating mental shortcuts. If it looks like this pattern, it's probably a false positive. And that works. Until the day a real incident matches the pattern they've been ignoring. If your DLP system is generating alerts that nobody has the bandwidth to investigate, you effectively have no monitoring at all. It's the equivalent of installing a fire alarm in a room where nobody can hear it. Sign number 4, and this one is the most common and the most dangerous. When someone leaves your bank, resigns, gets terminated, contract ends, whatever the reason, how long does it take until every single piece of access they had is revoked? Not their email, not their badge, every piece of access. Active Directory, VPN credentials, core banking, CRM, document management, third-party vendor portals, shared drives, service accounts they may have created. If the honest answer is more than 24 hours, and at most banks, the honest answer is more like 3 to 7 business days, you have a window of exposure. And for terminated employees, that window can be the most dangerous period of all. But here's where it gets worse. What about the accounts that never get revoked? Ghost accounts. I've seen banks where employees who left 2 years ago still had active VPN credentials. 2 years. Not because anyone made a deliberate decision to keep the access, but because there was no automated process to catch it. The offboarding checklist was manual, a spreadsheet, maybe a shared document, and IT had to cross-reference it against 15 different systems. Things fell through the cracks, and shared credentials make this exponentially worse. If 4 people on a team shared a service account login and one of them leaves, does anyone change the password? In my experience, almost never. The CERT Insider Threat Center at Carnegie Mellon has documented case after case where former employees used lingering credentials to access systems weeks or months after departure. It's one of the most predictable insider threat vectors, and it's one of the easiest to prevent if you have the process in place. If you don't have automated system-by-system access revocation triggered by offboarding with verification, you have ghost accounts in your environment right now. I'd bet money on it. Sign number 5, and honestly, this might be the biggest one. Think about your last internal audit, the most recent one. What did it focus on? External threats, penetration testing, firewall configurations, vendor risk, regulatory compliance checkboxes? Now ask yourself, did it include a specific section on insider threat controls? Did it test your behavioral monitoring capabilities? Did it assess your access review process? Did it evaluate your DLP effectiveness? Did it check for dormant privileged accounts? If the answer is no, if your last audit focused almost entirely on external threats and treated insider risk as a footnote or skipped it entirely, that's the biggest warning sign of all. Because regulators have caught on. The OCC's heightened standards for cybersecurity now explicitly reference insider threat monitoring. The FFIEC's updated IT examination handbook includes specific procedures for evaluating insider risk controls. The NYDFS Cybersecurity Regulation 23 NYCRR 500 requires covered entities to limit access privileges and implement monitoring. This isn't coming, it's here. Examiners are asking these questions today, and if your audit program hasn't evolved to cover insider risk with the same rigor as external threats, you're going to have a finding. So let's score this. Be honest with yourself. How many of those 5 signs apply to your bank? If one of them applied, you have a gap. A specific, identifiable gap that needs attention. Put it on your risk register, assign an owner, build a remediation plan. If 2 or 3 applied, you have a systemic issue. This isn't a single gap anymore. This is a pattern that suggests insider risk isn't being treated as a priority in your control framework. You need a dedicated review, not next quarter, now. And if 4 or 5 applied, I'm going to be direct with you. You have an incident waiting to happen. The warning signs are there, the exposure is real, and the only question is whether you find it first or a regulator does, or worse, an insider does. I'm building FluxForce because these 5 signs describe a structural gap, not a negligence problem. Today, Aiden Flux handles real-time fraud detection. Behavioral monitoring and privileged access intelligence are where the roadmap goes next. If 3 or more of those signs hit home, I want to hear from you, not to sell you a demo, because the people scoring 3 out of 5 on that checklist are the ones who should be telling me what to build next. Link in the description. And if you know someone who runs risk or security at a bank, send them this video. These 5 questions are overdue. I'll see you in the next one.